Please Can I Have a Mummy and Daddy is sponsored by orphans in need. Let's give them hope for a better tomorrow.
We're coming to the end of our exploration into adoption. It's been a long and enlightening journey. Last time, we had the privilege of learning about adoption through the eyes of 4 families, about what motivated them to adopt and what their experiences were like. In this final part, we revisit our families and find out more about their adoption experience. Friends, family and the wider community play such an important role in the success of an adoption. Whether it's helping that family through the initial adoption screening process or helping the child to feel part of the family, even helping young parents to come to terms, in some cases, with being a parent for the first time. What's clear is the support of the family and the wider community can be vital. I was interested to learn what experience our adopters had around this, and I put this first to Sister Saika, who'd adopted a brother and a sister aged 4 and 3 respectively, who are both now teenagers. What was the reaction of your family when you told them that you were planning to adopt?
Do you know what? Everybody was absolutely fine. We didn't really encounter much negativity other than from my father. You know, he couldn't understand why we wanted to bring up somebody else's children and why we didn't have our own and, you know, things like that. But now, do you know, they've come so far from that. It was literally just in the initial stages, because now the kids are on the phone to him all the time and he loves them to bits and they love him. So they've got a really, really good relationship. He's just accepted them as his grandchildren now.
Our next adopter, Sister Roshan, along with her husband, had adopted Halima over 20 years ago. Halima, now an adult, has married and moved away, but today she's come home to visit her adoptive parents. What about your extended family? How did they react to the prospect of you adopting?
No, some people did have some concern and they did talk about it to us, but that, you know, you might be neglecting your own children's needs, or you might be like, you know, not giving enough attention to the adopted child as well. My mum said to me on the phone that, why do you want to adopt? Because you've already got a girl and 2 boys. But they didn't realize how much we loved her and how much, you know, she's part of our family. But then once my mum saw us, how close we are, and, you know, they all accepted her. In the beginning, there were just 1 or 2 families who didn't like eat time. They won't give her Eid and give my other children. But my children, they said, no, how dare they do that? And they would divide the money up and give it to Halima as well. But as the time went by, you know, everybody's accepted her.
What about school and in the wider community? Did you ever get a hard time when people found out that you were adopted?
Yeah, I had an argument with a girl in school once. And, you know, she kept saying, no, but you're adopted and, you know, you weren't wanted and stuff. So, yeah, I was found on a doorstep or something, she said to me. So, I mean, we're still friends till today, which is kind of funny. But I had a big argument with her once and I got really annoyed and, like, just wanted to punch her up, but I couldn't because I was in school.
Cried a lot as well, didn't you?
Only because I was angry.
You were on the phone and...
Yeah, but those things happen,
But I think that makes you stronger, isn't it? Because she's more confident now than before. And now she tells everybody she's adopted and everybody wants to hear.
It's just because it's just been so normal to be adopted. To me, it wasn't something, you know, abnormal in the world, like aliens or something. It's just always been normal, so yeah, it's good.
Sister Uzma, who's a solicitor, and Brother Abid, a tax consultant and businessman, had a biological daughter Zainab, who was 3, and a son Ibrahim, who was nearly 2. They adopted Hafsa, who at the time was just 1.5. She's now 3 years old. And what about the response of the community to Hafsa? How have you found that?
We found, in terms of family, it's been very positive, and, you know, they've really just taken her in, and exactly the same as my other 2 children.
I mean, friends and associates of our generation, you know, they're very much positive about it. You know, they're all, I mean, they don't treat her any differently. A lot of them, I think, potentially adoptions even become something that they might consider doing, having seen us do it. And, you know, in a sense, it's almost become like a dowry because People want to know, you answer the questions, and reservations that they might have had, or maybe even misunderstandings. You know, we've said that we've sought opinion and clarified certain issues. So then it suddenly becomes a bit more open to the wider community, and you know, that's something that we hope that your documentary would also do.
That's what I hope so. It was so clear that adopting Hafsa had been a life-changing and hugely rewarding experience for both Uzma and Abid. Much to Hafsa's delight, since filming, Uzma has had a baby boy and they are now a family of 6, mashallah. Uzma treasures the many lovely drawings that Hafsa has made over the years that show just how much being adopted has meant to her. While sister Uzma's love for Hafsa comes through in this poem that she wrote especially for her.
Tiptoeing into your room one night to watch you sleeping there, I wondered how our lives had crossed and knew Allah had placed you here. I thought of how a mother that I might never see had given up the child now entrusted to me. How she must have prayed for you as she held your tiny hand. Seeing that first sweet smile, she prayed you'd understand. How hard it must have been for her to know that she would never hear your first words or loving laugh or wipe away your tears. I watch your laughter as you play and think how proud she might be if she could see you growing up so fast and so strong in your belief. Yet I wonder how many an orphan child who given up at birth might never grow to know Allah or hear His Prophet's words. You watch your baby brother sleep and turn to me to ask, did I grow in your tummy too? No, you are much more special, for you grew in my heart.
Unable to have children of their own, Brother Javed and his wife, both nurses, both from Mauritius, adopted 2 boys. The boys have dual heritage, born to a white mother and an Asian Muslim father. Brother Javed and his wife's family live abroad, and so they would have been relying on friends in the local community for support. I wondered what their families back home had made of their plan to adopt.
Yeah, because family, I had hit a few the obstacles with them, yeah, because family was telling me that, you know, that you have no support here, what are you doing, yeah, and what people will talk about that, yeah, and when I went home last time, they tell me that, no, you know, you decided to adopt, yeah, one day these children will leave you. And I said, yeah, no, if they decide to leave me, that's Allah has decided that they'll leave me. Yeah. What I'm worried about is that not them to leave me. Yeah. What I'm more worried that they leave the deen of Islam. That's my more concern about it. Yeah.
Another issue that potential adopters may be concerned about is the issue of contact with the adoptive child's family. Adoption, as it once was in the UK, with secrecy around the child's birth parentage, would not have complied with Islamic guidelines. But the fact that adoption in the UK now calls for the child to be aware of their birth history, for example by keeping a life story book, is what has led scholars to allow this type of adoption. Contact with the birth parents or birth siblings is therefore something of a duty wherever appropriate, and the level or the degree of contact is something that will be determined by the courts or by social services. Depending on the child's circumstance, it can range from direct, supervised contact to indirect letterbox contact, where only letters and photos are exchanged via social services. Do you have any contact with the birth family, and how do you find that?
Twice a year, I've got indirect contact with their birth parents. Yeah. I write them letters, yeah, to tell them how the children are doing. I even send them photographs of them. I've never had any direct response from them. Yeah. But I know that they do really care for the children. And for my children, they've got siblings. There's indirect contact by means of letters and photos that we exchanged. And direct contact, it can be about twice a year. Yeah, I had it this year, and they were really very pleased because I've already told my children they've got someone, but they don't understand the implication of it. Yeah, but one day, inshallah, they'll know it. Yeah.
Have you been involved in any contact with the birth family, and how do you find that? Is it intrusive? Is it in your control? How does that work?
It's not intrusive at all, and it's something that you would negotiate with your own social worker, and you're actually in complete control of the process because we have arranged letterbox contact with her
What does that mean, letterbox contact?
In a form of indirect contact with the birth family. So you would agree at a certain time or month in the year where you would write to her family and they would write to you, but you would never exchange addresses. It's completely confidential. It would go through the local authority which placed her. They would then forward the letter on to the birth family and vice versa for you. So for us, it's something that maintains her link with her birth family, which we think is really important. And it's something that gives us the leeway to raise her how we want without any intrusion from the birth family at all.
Whereas both these families had some form of regular contact with their birth family, Saika's children had no contact with their birth parents, but as is the norm, would be allowed to meet their birth parents upon turning 18. Halima, on the other hand, now 21, had passed this threshold and had met her birth parents. I wondered how they'd prepared for this.
All along, we've always said that Halima, if you want to find your birth parents or your family, we'll be 100% with you and we'll help you as much as we can to find them. But Halima never bring up the subject. And she said, oh, Mom, don't talk about it. Although we used to mention it all the time, that when you're 18 and you want to find your family, we'll be there, we'll help you. We did arrange a meeting, though, didn't we, when you were older?
I was about 19, yeah.
About 19, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, they came and, Halima knows now who they are and she's met her father as well. So now it's up to them and Halima to do whatever they want to do in future.
In the case of Saika's children, contact with the birth parents was not appropriate, but one day they might be able to meet them. I imagine that Saika would still have wanted the children to be kept informed about their background. What plans have you got to help the children understand where they come from?
From the time that they came to us, they were 3 and 4, so they weren't babies. And, as I said before, Mohammed used to always ask questions about why his mum didn't want him, whatever. So I've always encouraged that. And they know that, when they're old enough, they can see their parents, both the mother and their father if they want to. I mean, Aisha's always been, it's never really mattered that much to her. It's always been that I'm her mum. She doesn't feel the need to see anybody else. But I'm not sure, Mohammed might want to because he had a lot more questions and he was older. So when the time comes, inshallah, we'll deal with it. But it doesn't concern me too much because, the children know that we've given them all the security, the love. We've been parents for them. They've been, they're our children. But they've got that right to know their birth family. So that's something that we'll deal with again when it happens.
Previously in our documentary series, we looked in some detail at the Sharia requirements around adoption, such as preserving the child's lineage and the mahram issues. I asked Brother Javed about how he tackled these requirements.
I've consulted a few ulamas about it. They said to you that you're not allowed to change their name, but I quite agree with them, But in Islam, it said to you that Allah has said to you that innamal a'malu binni, Allah will judge you on all your action upon your intention. In my case, I had to change their surnames because they had a surname that wasn't appropriate for them, so I had and give them my surname, But what I've done is that I've kept their dad's surname as their middle name, so that one day that they'll know it, it's in their name, that their identity has been kept,
I wanted to ask you a sensitive issue about the issue of mahram. Many people are put off by this issue, thinking that if they themselves are not able to suckle the children, then there's going to be lots of complications later on. And I know in your case, that's a decision that you've made and that you're happy to live with. What's your and your wife's feelings about that?
The children, when they reach the age of puberty, they learn that when you come in the room of the mom, you need to knock at the door, And my wife also, she'll observe a degree of mahram, she'll cover herself, But I know that obviously she won't be able to go to Hajj with them, but the things that I need to accept it, But as I said to you, that Allah will judge on your intention, So if I can't achieve it, I can't achieve it. But at least what I'm trying to achieve is that to give them a good family background, Like for them, like tomorrow, they know that they have not lost that Muslim identity.
Javed's wife and Saika didn't actually provide their milk to their adopted children, but this didn't prevent Saika from having a close and loving relationship with her adopted son after he reached puberty. Now, inshallah, nor should it prevent Javed's wife and their sons having a loving relationship, because by then they'll have loved and cared for each other throughout all those years. Unlike Saika and Javid's wife, Uzma did manage to breastfeed Hafsa to make her mahram to her husband Abid and to her biological son Ibrahim, so Hafsa need never observe hijab in front of them. In order to help Muslim adopters fulfill Sharia requirements, such as mahram and the suckling issues, it's vitally important that the social worker enables prospective adopters to feel comfortable discussing these issues. Uzma and Abid recommend that prospective adopters visit a number of adoption agencies until they feel satisfied that they can have a good relationship with the social worker. What was your relationship like with your social worker? I mean, how did she accept specifically the Islamic aspects of adoption when we look at the more sensitive issues around breastfeeding and the age of your other children? What was their response to that?
I think it really would depend if you choose an agency that is sympathetic to your needs and is understanding of kind of the Muslim cultural practice, what our requirements of Sharia are. And alhamdulillah, we had absolutely no complaints. We had a very professional agency, a professional social worker. She wasn't Muslim, so she did come visit us. And, you know, there are certain things you have to go through. And obviously, you accept that because at the end of the day, they're giving you a precious thing like a child. So they have to do the things that they would need to do to make sure that you're suitable as parents.
But how did you find their reaction and their perception of the Islamic specific things when we talk about, you know, some people shy away from the aspects of, you know, breastfeeding or you know, the other Sharia issues that we have?
I think the important thing that from our perspective, is that we were very open from the beginning. Right. And then that was reciprocated by our social worker. We were very open. We explained to her the requirements of breastfeeding or providing breast milk to the child. We explained other requirements in terms of age and why the process should be sort of as speedy as possible for us. And she was very receptive to that, and that, you know, really helped. We didn't find the process intrusive at all. She actually said it's a learning process for her, it's a learning process for us, and we worked very well together.
That's really refreshing to hear. You never felt that being Muslims was a hindrance? You never felt that your
Absolutely
Islamic requirements were something holding you back?
No, I think it was, I mean, they understood our perspective, you know, very clearly from the beginning, and they were very receptive to it, like I said. And also the fact, when we began the adoption process, I was still breastfeeding Ibrahim, my middle child, and I made it clear to my social worker that I wanted to provide breast milk to our adoptive daughter-to-be, and she understood that, and she actually sort of worked hard to speed the process up as quickly as possible, knowing that I would only breastfeed my son for a certain length of time, and then I'd need to provide the milk to...
Which would have made things so much easier for you.
Yeah.
Although Sister Uzma produced milk naturally to feed Hafsa, I'm aware of increasing numbers of adopted mothers who successfully managed to induce milk lactation in order to breastfeed their adopted children. This is so the children become their mahram. Now, for more information on this issue, contact us at adoption@islamchannel.tv. Throughout our documentary series, we've touched on the important role foster carers play in the lives of children. Over a 25-year period, remarkably, Sister Roshan and her husband have fostered over 500 children. Going back 25 years, as well as adopting Halima and fostering so many children, Sister Roshan's family took on the full-time care of a 3-year-old girl called Nafisa who had severe disabilities. She is still with them today in the form of a long-term fostering arrangement. On my journey learning all about adoption and the needs of children in care, I've had the opportunity to look through some magazines which profile children. And I know that as well as some children needing to be adopted, there are other children who require permanent fostering. And I know this is something you've been closely involved with. What was it about fostering that interested you, and particularly about fostering a child with special needs?
I had a social worker, and she asked me one day, have you ever thought about it? I said no. So because I don't know, you know, what to do with them or how to look after them. So she took me to a special needs school, and I went there. I spent a day there, and then I found out, you know, how loving they can be. You know, because you know, until you see them, you don't know, or you be with them, you can't really tell, you know, what you can do for them and how much rewarding it is. Because they are so lovely, they're so loving. They give you so much back as well. And that's how it all started.
And how did she come into care?
Because she was premature, born premature. And she had cerebral palsy, and she was hard to feed, so I used to go and help her mom. But then after some time, parents couldn't look after her, so she came into care, and we took her on. From then, she was about 3, isn't it? Yeah, three years old when we took her on.
So what are Nafisa's complex needs?
She's got serious cerebral palsy, she's got learning difficulties, she's partially blind and neurological problems as well. And she's got scoliosis, that's the curving of the spine. So she wears a body brace to keep her upright. And she can't chew her food properly, so it has to be all pureed. And she's got peg tube in her tummy, like all the liquids goes through that. She's such a lovely child, I can't tell you. And she's been with me for the last 18 years actually, permanently. And she's like part of our family now. And you do get help from social services, like, you know, my house, her room has to be adapted. When she goes for respite and I'm in the house, I feel like I'm missing something. That, you know, I haven't got anything to do now, isn't it, Halima? Yeah. And Halima has been really marvellous, helping me, isn't it? I mean, to her, I'm her mum.
It's clear that Roshan and the others have found much reward in bringing up these children, whether it be through adoption or fostering. If you were to look back at your decision, are you pleased that you made that decision to adopt?
I never regret about it. I will say people, you'll never regret whatever you do. Yeah, you'll never regret because every time I see my little boy when he runs around, I say to him that I remember you when you first came to me, had smelly shoes. Yeah, you were a little boy, your nose was running, like this. Yeah, but it was hard job that time. But alhamdulillah, when I see them today, 2 years back down now. Yeah, so it's really, I'll never regret, I didn't regret, I'll never regret what I've done.
So what's your objective for the future?
My objective is that to give the maximum of myself, to give them a good life, and in the sense I give them good education, send them to good madrasa, they have good Islamic education. And whatever they become tomorrow, it's only Allah will decide that whatever they'll come. But every time I pray, I ask Allah, oh Allah, guide them on the right track, make them become good Muslim. That will be my success,
Inshallah. As we leave our families, I wanted to know what their last words would be.
And as you know, we were the first adoptive parents who adopted a child in this borough. And then since seeing us doing it, there's another 3 families whom we know they've adopted. And it's not that they haven't got children of their own, they have. And one family has adopted 2 actually. And mashallah, their son has become Hafiz. And another family who's adopted, their daughter is Alima now as well, isn't it? She studies same place as you.
In school with me,
And another family, their daughter is only 6 now, and they have adopted as well. So, I mean, you know, once people see that it's not hard, you know, you just treat them like your own children, and you get so much back from it that, you know, people, once they see it, you do it, they do it as well.
I think that it's something that is so enriching to your family life. If you recognise that families these days don't just come in one shape or form, there's such a variety. And, you know, the blessing that Hafsa's brought to our family is beyond words, and the education that she's given to my children, and how amazing it's been for Zainab and Ibrahim to just wholeheartedly accept her, no reservations. And I can't imagine, you know, a single day without her. So of all the decisions we've made, I think adopting Hafsa was probably the best.
Enriching.
Just from my personal experience, even my adopted children's mom, she came from the care system. Her siblings end up in care. Her mom was known to social services. She was known to social services, but she wasn't picked up early enough, and her children also end up in care system. So I don't, brothers and sisters, I don't think anyone would like any children that's got the potential of being looked after in a Muslim family, to have an opportunity to be somebody in the society, that you let that opportunity going. That's a golden opportunity to achieve Jannah, brothers and sisters. That's my message to you.
I've seen that there are indeed Muslim children who are needing adoption, but how a shortfall of Muslim adopters means that either they're adopted out of faith, they endure a long wait, or they may spend their entire childhood in the care system. When we started making these films, the picture wasn't clear whether or not adoption was even permissible in Islam at all. However, what became evident quite quickly is that although there are some issues, these issues have clear and workable solutions from within the Sharia. And what we can say now without any doubt is adoption is permissible within Islam. Scholars liken children such as these as modern-day orphans because they are devoid of parental care. This is why they talk about the reward of looking after such children as being like that of looking after an orphan. Sheikh Sahib explained that it becomes the duty of Muslims as a collective body, or a fard kifaya, to think about all the ways that can bring relief and assistance to these children, whether they're technically orphans or not. Upon the advice of their scholars, our families did just that. They said, here is a Muslim child, a child that has no family. Let us be their family. Let us be the ones to relieve this child's hardship. This is beautifully summed up by a message from little Hafsa.
The Prophet ﷺ said, he who relieves a hardship in this life for a believer, Allah will relieve for him a hardship of the day of resurrection.
So whatever did happen to little Layla? You may remember Layla, age 3, from earlier in the series. She had suffered neglect at home and had been taken into care and then put up for adoption. 3 years later, she was still waiting to be adopted. I'd like to think that after all that waiting, she's finally been adopted. And I pray that that's the outcome for all the children in her situation who simply ask, please can I have a mummy and daddy?
She wakes early in the morning with a smile, and she holds my head up high. Don't you ever let anybody put you down, 'cause you are my little angel. Can't you make something warm for me to drink? 'Cause it's cold out there, she thinks. Then she walks me to school, yes, I ain't no fool. I just think my mommy is amazing. She makes me feel like I can do anything. And when she's with me, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. After school, she's waiting by the gate. I'm so happy that I just can't wait to get home to tell her how my day went. Eat the yummy food only my mom makes. Then I wind her up 'cause I don't want a bath. And we run around the house with a laugh. No matter what I say, she gets her way. I think my mommy is amazing. She makes me feel like I can do anything. And when she's with me, there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Please Can I Have a Mummy and Daddy is sponsored by orphans in need. Let's give them hope for a better tomorrow.